take a moment and think about the best part of the last journey you took. It might be an international or domestic trip that you went on. And hold on to that thought while I deliver my speech and take you on my journey. My journey begins in Moscow, Russia, where I was growing up on the outskirts of the city with a big dream. My dream was to travel the world, to explore, to learn about other cultures. Growing up in the 80s in Russia at the time of a big change from communism to a different political structure, it was a far-fetched dream. Until one day my dream came true. 18 years ago, my family went on a big adventure. We moved from Moscow to New York and arrived at JFK Airport. I remember that moment like it was yesterday. I was so excited, eager to learn about new culture, learn a new language, connect to people around me. I couldn't wait to see what's next. So what came next is a couple of years later, I found myself at JFK Airport once again. On that day, I felt defeated. I felt like I don't fit in US, and I really wanted to go home to Russia. So I held in my hand one-way ticket, New York, Moscow, and I had every intent to go on a flight that day, until my flight was delayed by an hour. And I started people watching, and if you've ever been to JFK Airport, it's a melting pot. There's a lot of people from all parts of the world traveling through or starting their flight from JFK Airport. So I started watching people around me, and I've noticed families talking two languages to their kids, businessmen traveling through New York and talking to their bosses, and none of them on that day were as defeated as me. All of them were excited to be part of this culture, and you know what? That moment really inspired me. In fact, it inspired me so much that I didn't get on that flight on that day in New York. Instead, I stand here before you today as a Clevelander, as an award-winning business professional, mostly for efforts in the community for diversity, for advocating for women in technology. I stand before you as a business professional whose main responsibility at her company is to serve as a bridge between two cultures, Russian and American, and making sure that the two teams, our Russian employees and our American employees, work together and that we succeed as an organization. So what brings me to this stage today? And what changed in this time between that day in New York and today, this stage? What changed is the way I was thinking, my global mindset. So I developed a global mindset, and by that I mean I started being very open-minded to other cultures. I started communicating to people from different parts of the world and in our communities as well by really listening to their opinion, to their story, and not be there to judge, but rather to take in lessons. I started being very passionate about international business, international politics, and really absorbing all that knowledge every single day. And that's what brings me to today. So some of you in the audience think and might respond in the way I hear a lot. That's very wonderful, global mind is great, but I don't have an ability to travel or to learn a new language, so what should I do? I can't develop a global mind. So every time I hear that response, I think back of a time where I worked at a technology company on a team of 12 international people. So we argued about absolutely everything. We had different native language, different religion. We were completely different. But in this organization, we were the most closely knit team. And why is that? Because every once in a while, usually every couple of months, we gathered for dinner where we would bring to the table a dish from our country and a story. And each one of us shared personal details, and we really connected in a new way. They didn't require for me to leave the country, to leave the state, even to leave the city of Cleveland. It was right in my own neighborhood where I was connecting with people from around the world. And it was a great experience. And of course, there was a lot of international liquor involved, which always connects people. So if you're thinking by now, what is the power of the global mind? Why should I develop the global mind? Because you don't have any choice but not to develop it. Technology, international trade, globalization is connecting us. It's forcing us to connect, to reach out to the people in our community and outside in this world. The borders between our countries are blending together, and we're forced to learn about each other. If you are in my audience today and you're a business executive, you are obligated to have a global mind to connect the people in your organization, to remain competitive, to connect to those customers and suppliers that might be elsewhere in the world. If you're a parent and listening to me today, you need to raise children that are global citizens, contributing to their community. If you're a citizen and advocate for your community, you need to connect to your neighbors in a whole new way by developing a global mind. And I know all of you today in my audience are either immigrants or come from a family of immigrants. So you owe it to yourself to connect back to your roots and be open to other cultures and develop a global mind. In the beginning of my talk, I asked you, what was the best part of your last journey, of a trip that you took? Some of you might have thought about maybe a trip you went on, the sights that you've seen, the fun that you had. Some of you thought about the best dish that you had, the different cuisine that you tried. But I think a lot of you thought to yourself, oh, I remember the people I went with. I remember the connections I made along the way. So I truly believe that connections that we make are best part of our journey. So let's take a moment and think about that. Thank you.